session is about data analytics. Certainly a word, a phrase that I've been hearing more and more recently, and I've definitely seen changes coming through in the professional bodies, in their syllabus, in their exams. For those of you who joined yesterday, where we looked at finance in a digital world, we did talk a little bit about data analytics and that changing role of the accountant. So going from the sort of backroom bean counter there to really take carrier bags of receipts, take information and sort it in order to prepare the accounts. The role of the accountant has significantly changed over recent years. And we definitely talked about the excitement around where the role in finance is heading towards in the future. So we're really picking up on that topic again here, looking at data analytics. And I'm really, really pleased to say that we've been joined by Ellie Dingham from BHP, who is Head of Digital Advisory, and is going to be able to share with us some thoughts, some experiences, and some insights into data analytics in a finance world. So thank you for joining us, Ellie. Welcome.
Thank you.
It would be really great to start with if you could let us know a little bit about where you work, what your role is, what your background is.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Ellie and I work for BHP LLP. We're a firm of accountants based in the north. We're a mid-tier firm, so we've got 5 offices, about 300 staff, and a really varied range of services from audit and accounts to tax, financial planning, corporate finance, debt advisory, sort of you name it, we do it kind of thing. And I actually did my AAT, then I went on to do my ACCA, and I've worked at BHP for 9 years. I started off in our audit and accounts department and stayed there all the way up to qualifying in 2017. And then after that, I kind of figured I got a bit of a passion for tech, which surprised me more than anyone because spreadsheets and VLOOKUPs and all those things weren't really my strong suit. But in terms of like the future proofing of the profession and that side of things, I was really interested in where it was going. So I got offered a role to head up our data analytics offering in our audit department. So I managed the rollout of data analytics, how we used it, how it fitted in with our methodologies and how we reported to clients. And I supported the audit department both internally and externally with audit clients on getting traction with using data analytics. And then since then, my role kind of widened. So I started looking at all sorts of digitisation projects and innovation projects within the firm, sort of anything that made things better for staff or clients. And from there, I've just recently taken a role as Head of Digital Advisory, which basically means I kind of look after sort of, it's hard to explain it actually, and it is quite a new role, so it's probably the first time I've had to introduce myself as this. I support the team in how we offer digital advisory services, so looking at Xero and the apps, which I'm sure you've heard about this week, and how they fit into a client's finance function. And looking at our standardisation of workflows and processes around that. So yeah, hopefully I'm in quite a good position to talk to you today.
Definitely. So a fantastic amount of experience, not just in the role of an accountant, but really looking at the digital advisory and using tech in order to support your clients as best you can, really offering a service that wasn't there going back when I initially, when I was an accountant. I'm no longer an accountant. Those kind of services just weren't there. And so it's something that is so new and freshly developed. And it sounds like you've really been at the forefront of it within your organisation, which is great.
Yeah.
So the title of this session is Data Analytics. So it would be really good to start at the basics. I mean, for me more than anyone, really good to understand what we mean by data analytics from a financial perspective.
Yeah, good question. So from an audit perspective, I'd say data analytics is all about ingesting data from clients cleansing it, cleaning it up, and generating insights from it. And what that means in practice and practically is sort of taking the data and being able to take a view over 100% of transactions in the year. So you're looking at patterns and anomalies and highest risk transactions, and you're kind of stopping with that approach of sort of needle in a haystack testing. So we've all heard about the audit scandals, Patisserie Valerie, and I think this is kind of the industry's way of saying we're never going to be able to perform an audit where we look at 100% of everything, and that is not the job of auditors. But there is a way to take a view over the entire population, and rather than always using samples and analytical reviews and those kind of tests, we can actually sort of map things out and really focus in on where we see risk based on patterns and anomalies and trends. I think from a wider financial perspective, it's similar. It's ingesting the data, cleansing it, and putting it into a usable format that businesses can make decisions on. So you've got like 4 sort of categories of analytics. You've got prescriptive analytics, which is asking the question of why things are happening. So it's understanding, it can be as simple as my sales have gone down, why, and it's looking at the data. Prescriptive's what? I'm jumping ahead of myself. Diagnostic is why. So you can use data to look at trends and patterns and understand them, and then use diagnostic analytics to answer the question of why. Then you've got predictive analytics, which looks at modelling. So you'd model scenarios in the future. So a bit of sensitivity analysis, but you're using businesses' data, and you might look at things like rainfall, if that's relevant, or footfall in a certain area and things like that. And then finally, you've got prescriptive analytics, which involves sort of testing of strategies. So I've got X amount of money to spend on a project. Can you help me use data to figure out which is the best way to go with my business? And again, that'll involve various sources of data, including the company's financial data, but also other. And I'd just like to say that that is, that's my definition. That's how I've come. That's how I understand it. So, I hope no one quotes me on that, but hopefully that does put it into a bit of context, because it is a really wide question, but ultimately it's just using the data, getting it into a format where it's not just numbers and it's understandable, and you can visualize it in a graph or whatever's the appropriate visualization and use it.
Fantastic. I did say they would go. That really, really is helpful, actually, so from that audit perspective about cleaning it up and generating those insights and identifying those places where there are higher risks in order to know where to target attention and to spend your time, which really must make that whole process much more efficient as well as effective.
Yeah, I think it is more efficient, but equally you've got a bigger view. So sometimes you need to spend more time, but you're spending time in the right areas, and I think that's what's important. We often get clients saying, well, if you're using all this software and everything, then surely the fee should reduce, and it's actually no, it's just audit quality is improving. That's
a really good point. So yeah, not necessarily more efficient, but definitely more effective.
Yeah.
That service. And then from the other side, sort of from a non-audit perspective, I really like that with the 4 categories, that what and why, and then the modelling of that data. So using it to consider what will those patterns be, what are they going to look like into the future, and actually using it to aid and support decision making for businesses. So really adding value and providing a tool to enable accountants to be able to offer a wider range of services, really more useful services.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, the role of the accountant in this is not that we deal, like I'm not a data scientist, but we interpret, and we can speak to the business owners about that.
Yeah, really interesting. That's really helped me to understand it, and I'm sure that does for many of us. So where you work, it seems to be a very progressive firm and has really embraced technology and the importance of data and to your business and the services that you offer to your client. So can you tell me how the services that you offer have changed and what you now do more to sort of help businesses support with their decision making and the growth in their business?
Yeah, so I think on the audit side, we use for our data analytics, we use a tool called Inflow, and in just putting it simply in terms of the remote auditing that we had to start undertaking, obviously from March the 23rd when the first lockdown hit, and have continued to do since, it just literally enabled us to carry on as a business. And do that, you know, if we were sort of going out on site, and which obviously we couldn't do, but we weren't able to ingest data, it would have really made auditing difficult. So from a really simple and basic point of view, that's one of the first wins and how it's helped us. And thankfully we are a progressive firm, and we've made that investment, you know, years ago, and we were all ready and set up for that. We've replaced some of our testing, our audit work, with the use of audit data analytics. So, you know, I don't want to bore you all and go into specifics, but in terms of the risk of management override, which is always a significant identified risk, we actually just use Inflow to test that now, and that is significantly improved testing than what we could previously do, because we're only human. And, you know, I'll go into later on what Inflow does and how that works, but yeah, in a simple term, we've replaced some work with the use of audit data analytics. Obviously, we still have to get involved, but and use our judgment and professional skepticism, but that's another win for us. I think one of the other things that we've done is we actually use Inflow and how it presents the data and what it enables us to learn about the business to report back to our clients. So we can make comments to them on, you know, how high the suspense account usage is, and who's working ridiculous hours, and etc., and really try and drill down into the whys of that, and present them with some added value on how their finance function works, and how they operate as a business, which is actually really useful for our not-for-profit clients in particular, where they might have a board of trustees that really doesn't understand what's going on in the finance function on a day-to-day basis. So management insights, that's been another really good one for us, and it's definitely set us apart from the competition. I think data analytics has always been seen as something that the Big Four could do, because they had, you know, their tech guys and the financial resource to build whatever software they needed. I think a company like Inflow, you know, and there is others, they make it available to mid-tier firms like us, which is great. Obviously, non-audit wise, it's huge as well. It's made a big difference. So, and it's new service lines really. So we offer services like conversions to cloud accounting software, which obviously will become more and more necessary with making tax digital coming in soon. Obviously we've already got it for VAT, but it's coming in for income tax and then later for corporation tax. So that's the service we offer. You know, we will take your data out of whatever system you used previously, or whether it was a old school red cash book, a bag of receipts, and we'll put it into something like Xero for you. We also do digital health checks. So you might have been on Xero for years, but you know, things have fallen out of place and it's not really giving you what you need. So we'll look at that. We do things like finance function reviews, and what we do there is we look at how a system works, how they approve invoices, for example, and we'll say, right, okay, you know, there's an app that can help you with this and add on to Xero or QuickBooks or whatever it might be. Let us advise you on that, and then we can implement it for you, and we can look at that for the entire finance function. And probably, you know, what we've always done. So, you know, year-end compliance, year-end stats, tax, management accounts. It's just enabled us to do more, really, kind of scale it up and offer more to our clients, and where we're not spending time kind of getting overly involved in data processing, we can give clients value back. So we can spend time and pick up the phone when they're about to breach VAT or whatever it might be. You know, we've seen a concern, sales figures have dropped significantly. You know, let's pick up the phone, let's maybe have a talk about strategy or whatever it is. It's just really been that difference for us in becoming not just your accountant, but your trusted advisor. And yeah, it really opened doors for us in advisory services.
I think that's really interesting, that phrase there about being that trusted advisor, that you're not there as the accountant just to deal with the compliance, which perhaps was the role some years ago, but these new technologies have enabled us to be much more involved in actually really supporting the business in what it's doing and how it's performing and how it's growing. For probably a lot of the people that are listening to this, they will work at a firm of accountants, or not necessarily at a firm of accountants, maybe working for themselves, that actually this will have an impact on whether you're working as a bookkeeper yourself or whether you're working for a large firm of accountants. The technology that's out there and these additional services that are sort of stemming from it are really going to be applicable to everyone. You said there about that moving from that manual system or their current system across to a digital system like cloud accounting. And then the other sort of bits around compliance, but also being able to notice when things aren't quite right, things are different, things that perhaps they've got issues with their cash flows, being able to spot those things earlier to be able to support and advise your clients better throughout the year. Not just
100%. I think we saw that, you know, when the pandemic hit, and I think it was funny because Xero actually did a roundtable at the end of 2020. And one of the things that they said was, and obviously this is with absolutely no disrespect to the NHS and everything, but in some ways the accountants became unsung kind of key workers, because we had to help businesses secure that funding and look at their cash flow and how they were going to keep their staff. And without tech, we wouldn't have been able to do that on the scale we needed to. And I think it's also it's kind of really hit. We've wanted clients to move away from manual records for a long time because we want to be better advisors to them, not for any gain of our own. But I think it's really hit home with businesses that they kind of need that tech in place in certain circumstances to be able to run their business and take that view on profit and where they're at and where cash sits and those sorts of things. So yeah, I think this has been happening for a long time, but the pandemic has really kind of stressed the importance.
Yeah, definitely. Thinking what an audit must have been like in the depths of lockdown without these systems, trying to audit a client where you're reliant on them finding an invoice, scanning it over to you or whatever it might be in order for you to be able to do those checks, compared to this tech being in place and being able to actually access it and take a proactive approach to finding what you need from an audit or just sort of general accounting services point of view. You mentioned Inflow, which I've definitely heard Inflow mentioned a number of times, and I know particularly one of the professional bodies uses it as part of their exams. I don't really know what Inflow is. Are you able to sort of just give us a bit of an overview, what it is and why it's used? And
yeah, so I touched on it earlier, but previously data analytics was something that was available to the Big Four. They had the ability to employ hundreds of data scientists and tech guys that could build platforms that could ingest data and cleanse it, and don't actually always know the right term for that. So what Inflow was actually built by two of the guys that built PwC's Halo. But what they wanted to do was make it available for the mid-tier market and, well, the entire, accountancy profession, because it was obvious this was the way the regulators were going to go, and, with all the reviews and Briden reviews and things like that. So what Inflow does is it enables ingestion from 100% of accounting systems. So, and that sounds really scary, but actually sometimes it can just be as simple as running a trial balance and a general ledger report, so all the transactions in the year, and putting it through Inflow. And their data guys work on it in the background and turn it around for us and throw it back out to us in lovely graphs, visualizations and insights. So we don't have to get involved in any of that. It can be a Sage backup, it can connect to Xero, it's all sorts of different ways. And then, like I said, that comes back to us in lovely insights and things. And so, you'll go into different various modules, and in like the detect module, which is what we use for management override testing, it will have a heat map, and that visualizes every single transaction in the year and scores it based on risk. And the risk is based on how many times that particular transaction occurred and what profit impact it had. So it's really useful for us because in seconds we can spot, oh, there was a massive redundancy payment, it only happened once and it was of X amount of, and it's just that ability to have that big oversight of transactions. And then it will sort of go into, so it'll look at, it runs 24 set routines, and you can build your own routines as well, where it'll say, right, non-working days, non-working time. So, you know, fraud's always more likely to occur outside of normal working hours when not everyone's live in the system. I mean, you could argue that both ways. They might want to hide it whilst everyone's working, but that's kind of, you know, looking at the audit standards for the management override testing. It'll look at suspense account usage. It can look at things like round sum amounts. So very rare these days that something's dead on £1,000 or dead on £10,000. So it looks at that. It looks at things like where all of a sudden the financial directors suddenly started posting a few random sales invoices at 9 o'clock at night. And it just kind of focuses your mind into, right, okay, this is something I really need to question and understand. Why did so-and-so log on at 1 a.m. just to post a credit card statement? Is there something they're trying to hide in that posting? And that's just sort of one module. There's other things it does, like it maps out the entire revenue cycle. So making sure that all invoices resulted in a posting in the general ledger and that they resulted in a payment that went to the bank account. So it's really clever, and it's, you know, it's a really useful, helpful tool for us auditors.
I can imagine that saves so much time from manually trying to go through and pick up and look for all of that. Is just,
well, you just wouldn't, you're naturally going to miss things. And obviously, you know, you have your review process, so, you know, your assistant, your senior, your manager, your partner, so hopefully along the way someone does, but it does just make that bit easier.
Yeah, and
it makes it auditing more interesting, I have to be honest, because you're not spending time processing, you're spending time focusing and making judgment decisions where they're needed. Yeah,
that really is interesting. And that reduction in the level of human error that could occur by the accountant as well as the people within that firm, it's really, really reducing that down.
Yeah.
Really interesting. And I like that. It's made auditing interesting. As a management accountant, I'd need
struggling to believe that.
So aside from the audit, how is the technology and the importance of data, how is it actually changing that role of the accountant, in your opinion?
So I think the main thing is that we've got access to real-time information. So gone are the days of, you know, getting dropped off the books 9 months later. At that point, it's all too late. You know, well, it's not too late. Obviously, it's still needed and interesting. But you know, if my partner, he's got his own business, and quite often back in the day, his accountant might have said to him, "Oh, you breached that months ago." And, you know, there's nothing he can do about that at that point. He's got to find the money for that bill. So I think it's about the real-time information and us being able to act on it. And I think, I mean, I'm sure maybe everyone's here has heard it, but the industry as a whole is 100% moving more to advisory services than compliance. You know, you've got your QuickBooks systems where, in theory, a client can just go on and do their own tax return, file their own accounts. I think I'm lying about the accounts, actually. I don't know QuickBooks that well, but you see my point. People can go and do it for themselves. They've always been able to do it for themselves, don't get me wrong, but when a piece of software that they know their bank reconciles to suddenly fills the form in for them, then why do they need us? So I think it's just moving a kind of away, not away from that. Compliance will always be the experts, and there will always be a need for it, but it's just kind of sort of briefing up what we can do so we can still add that value and really be advisors. I don't know if, I know there's been a Xero talk this week, and I'm sorry, I keep banging on about Xero, but they actually do like a small business insights kind of, I don't know if it's like a survey. Yeah, I think it's a survey that they do with loads of small businesses in the UK. And it's really interesting how people's percentages of how they view their accountants in the last few years have changed. So we're not just their accountants anymore. They fully see us as their number one trusted advisor. in the finance space, and I think that's where it's changing. And you know, we've got, if you think about what we do, we've got the ability to advise based on all the businesses we see and all the different individuals and how they do things. And so it's bringing that advice to our clients, and we've picked up on all sorts of things. Plus we can read a set of numbers and we can really make those make sense to people that might either not have any interest in it or not understand it. So I just think it's kind of having that more proactive approach to client work and being able to add value. But that comes from the fact that we're not just getting involved once a year. We can be involved as much or as little as they want us to be going forward because of tools like Xero and everything else.
Definitely. I really like that actually we, as accountants, it's not that these machines are taking over what we used to do. Actually, it's enabling us to be able to use our technical, our professional knowledge, our experiences to be able to add much more value to those businesses.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it makes it a much more pleasant role for us. You know, we can have those discussions and chats and get involved and really offer support to our clients. So yeah, I think it's a good thing for the profession.
Definitely, and doing the more interesting stuff. So taking those numbers and actually being able to add meaning to them, be able to discuss them, make them understandable, and support the client in that way rather than sort of preparing a report for them. So how do you think it's sort of changed, or how better are we able to support businesses in making decisions? What kind of decisions do we support them with because of this sort of technology and data that's available to us?
So I think it's as simple as, you know, bookkeeping. We can offer a bookkeeping service if needed, and what that and maybe management accounts, whether they're quarterly or monthly. And what that actually means for a business is they've got up-to-date information. So they're not working on last year's profit figure that we don't have to file until 9 months after that year end. That they're working on last month's profit figure, so they can make those decisions, and they know because their bookkeeping's up to date and their management accounts are up to date and they've been reviewed, they're accurate, and they can trust that figure. You know, we all know as accountants, cash is different to profit, so you know they're not going off their bank balance, they're going off their profit. So I think just in the most simple terms, it's that, and that's nothing that we're not all kind of used to. I do think you feel like it can get really complicated, but that's probably one of the ways. And then there's obviously a sort of more complex kind of cash flow modelling, budgeting, forecasting, scenario planning, which obviously helps businesses make decisions. So someone might say to me, I can either throw £10,000 at this marketing campaign, or I can buy a new machine, and we can maybe look at modelling those out and you know, using tools to do that, because there are tools that helps us do that. We can look at what cash they've got available. We could even say, do you know what, if you had a really good quarter, and we could put prices up, or we could break into a new market, you can do both. So you know, things like that. We've got an ability to benchmark. So when we've got clients' data in systems that are synced, we've got that ability to say, okay, so and so has got a manufacturing business in this region. We've actually got 17 other clients that do similar things, and what are they doing better that's putting this client in this particular lower quartile of results and things. So we offer like a board view service, so where one of our partners will spend time with a client and kind of sit there and go through their figures with them, and you know, just as simple as talking about strategy. So where do you want to be and what do you want to make of this business? And okay, right, so that's fine, so we understand where you want to be, how are we going to get there, and how can we help you problem solve? And obviously in a firm like ours, it's, you know, we've got various departments that handle lots of things, but equally for people that aren't in a firm as big as BHP, it's just kind of like, okay, well, we need to speak to the bank about some financing, or, you know, there's this grant income available, whatever it might be. I think it's just kind of having those discussions and using the financial information to support that, and yeah, looking at different scenarios.
For me, as so I teach management accounting, so I really talk a lot about planning, control and decision making being a huge part of that role of finance within an organisation. And sort of hearing you talk there, you're talking about stuff which is that's the stuff that we can be doing, that we should be doing, that we're contributing towards. So helping with planning, what should we be doing with this product? We've got up-to-date information as to how it's been performing up to now. We're able to therefore consider what we should be doing with it into the future. So enabling us to plan much better, taking control. So sort of things with regards to raising finance. I remember when working sort of a long time ago back in the day, and someone wanted to arrange financing, they needed a loan from the bank, they would come to us with the bag of their receipts, and it's like, well, it's going to be a month before you will have this information to take to the bank to find that out. But now that information is there and ready for you to be able to use as the accountant to support them in raising that finance. And that whole decision making, so being able to plan, budget, forecast what's going to happen based on those patterns that are right up to date. Really enabling us as accountants to be able to support those businesses much better.
Yeah,
definitely. So it's very, it is very different what it enables us to be able to do as accountants now compared to before. So sort of that being counter, that preparing the accounts focused very much on compliance, to now having quite a different role. And you talked a little bit about finding those patterns and visualization and communicating that information across to clients. What do you think are the skills that an accountant needs sort of now to operate in this current role as we see it?
Yeah, I mean, this is quite a difficult question, but probably the first thing I'd say is that there's so much, when you start looking into these kind of buzzwords of the moment, AI, data analytics and all that kind of thing in technology, I think there's a lot of kind of talk of, we won't have a job in the future. I absolutely point blank disagree with that. We as a firm have embraced technology significantly, I'd say, since late 2016. And ever since then, we've had our biggest graduate and AAT school leaver intakes that we've ever had. And that's because it's not taking anything away from us that we kind of want to do. It's just enabling us to be able to spend time where it's more beneficial and where you need a person rather than kind of a process or data processing doing. So I think, don't get me wrong, I do think there's probably in the future a need for some tech savviness. I think that, just naturally as we move through life, if I said to my dad, for example, Dad, come on, throw me a spreadsheet together, he'd be like, what's a spreadsheet? So, I do think, as we move through, our clients will have more tech savviness, and therefore we need to be able to have that as well. I think communication skills will always be high up there. And I think that will, that there'll be changes in that when you look at data analytics, for example, you need to be able to have an ability to pick the right visualization. And it's fascinating, really, because if you think about how all the coronavirus updates and the government updates, you can see how you might go on one newspaper and they've twisted that data and that visualization the other way, and exactly the opposite in another newspaper, or even the government, because that's all about picking the visualization and telling the story. So I think there's that element of communication, but I think just being able to maintain a relationship, honesty, integrity, and trust with your clients always going to be really important. I think problem solving skills, we're accountants. When things don't balance, we fix the problem. So I don't think that's different, but it might be a different question in that it's something like, my bookkeeper isn't giving me what the information I need out of the business. So how can you help me? And for me, that'd be right. Okay, so we need to figure out a way to get you better management information, and we can offer you that service. So I think it sounds like things are, really, really changing. And I do think they are, but I also think we all have the skills already. and in this role, and it's just a lot about interpreting and providing insight, and just kind of keeping up to date with what's changing, really.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a lot of those things that we actually learn about whilst we're studying to be accountants, that historically we haven't necessarily been able to make the best use of that technical knowledge that we've learned, those skills that we've developed. And now we're in a position where we are able to, because some of those other activities and tasks are already done, and actually we can do those other things that are adding value.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Where do you think a firm like yours is going in the future?
So I think obviously all we ever want to do is provide the best service for clients and staff. I think we'll absolutely try and, you know, offer more advisory services as and when they come up or change or needs change. So things like MTD, that's a huge change, and you know, clients will need support with that. So, but I think probably practically there is a lot changing with auditing standards and qualifications and things like that, and data analytics and technology, I think, is going well. I already know that some of the exams have started to use data analytics software within them. So I think that's a big change, and obviously we'll want to support that. And I do think staff will probably get some, you know, I've trained all our audit department on kind of using Inflow, but probably in the future it'd be less how to use this piece of software and more, here's data analytics, how would you like to use it on this audit? But you know, I do think that's a fair bit away yet. So yeah, I think it's keeping an eye on what the auditing standards are saying on that side of things. On probably more the non-audit side of things, I think I'd personally really like to see us get really involved in the kind of modelling, analytics and things like that. You know, having that ability to really help clients with that, model out scenarios and things, using predictive analytics. Obviously, I don't have that skill set in house, and you know, I didn't do a computer science degree or data science or anything like that. So. But that's just something I do think we'll probably offer in the future, being a bigger mid-tier firm and having that kind of big client base.
Yeah, there's definitely been that increased focus in data analytics across the accountancy qualifications. I know that we've certainly seen big changes in some of the units in CIMA. We've seen the use of Inflow in ICAEW. ACCA, there has been increased focus on sort of big data visualization and communication. And then we've seen the same come through with AAT, and we're certainly going to see quite a lot of that coming through in Quals 22, which we have got a session running tomorrow. So if anyone's joining us tomorrow, we will talk about those new topics that are going to be in the Quals 22 syllabus, but there is more of a focus on data analytics and the importance of data and being able to communicate it. So definitely true. So there are a couple of questions in the chat box, which I will come back to in a moment. I've just got one more question that I would like to ask you. What do you think is interesting that's in the pipeline, or what do you think is the next big thing in terms of data analytics in the finance world?
So I think blockchain will change the way we audit significantly. I think it will remove the need for some of the work we currently do. So yeah, that's probably my first big one. I think there's more real life examples of blockchain than any of us probably really realise, which is quite interesting, but yeah, also slightly daunting. And then my other one's cryptocurrencies. So I saw a fascinating post on LinkedIn the other day about how this business set up. They don't have a bank account. They are set up based on crypto. They pay their staff in crypto. I just thought it was a fascinating concept, but realistically, how far away are we off that? And how do we service clients? I know one firm in particular that have massively gone down that route. Yeah, one firm in particular have massively gone down that route, and they are they're going to specialize in offering kind of services to clients that only do crypto or that have significant interest in cryptocurrencies. And then it's like the practicality of how do you tax that and how's that going to change and everything. So yeah, they're my next two big things. I think cryptos, it's now. I think it's, you know, it's here and it's not going to be long until we've got a cryptocurrency balance in the set of accounts to audit, or equally, you know, something like that. So yeah, I think blockchain's probably how it's going to change audit, as much as I think it's here and now, and there are real life examples of it being used in industries like diamond mining, for example. I think how it changes audit is probably, hopefully, quite a way off anyway.
Really, really interesting. Yeah, I've listened to some really interesting podcasts around cryptocurrency, and yeah, really interesting to see what that is going to do to, or how it's going to impact on us in finance. Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much. Really, really interesting, and it's really helped me to understand. I mean, to start with, what data analytics, what that means, but what it means to our role as that trusted advisor, what that means to the services that we offer. There are a couple of questions. So Damien said, do you feel your role gives a lot of freedom to chat and demonstrate to clients?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's difficult because when you kind of first start taking over that portfolio, it's like, oh, well, I have a meeting with them, but I'm not just going to pick up the phone to them. And I do think that's changing, and I think people have, they pick up the phone to us. You know, arguably, I think we became a bit like a 24/7 Tesco in the pandemic, just with all the kind of queries and that the volume. So I do think that kind of barrier of we have a meeting, you know, pre-year end and post-year end is breaking down, and I do think we've got more freedom to discuss those things. I'd also like to think that we'd actively encourage those kind of conversations as well. And for me, that's what becoming a trusted advisor is. It's picking up the phone and saying, you know, let's have a coffee. Where do you want your business to be? Let's see how we can help you. And that's probably one of the best parts about our job and how it's changing. Increasing
those opportunities for you to be able to be involved with that business at different touch points throughout the year. Yeah, not just that year end. Another question from Laura, it sounds like a consultancy service. What's the line between that and accounting?
Yeah, I saw this one come through actually. So I think with consulting, it's generally someone that's got a really in-depth knowledge of then they might be an accountant as well, don't get me wrong, but they've actually been a business owner or heavily involved in various businesses that they now consult on in their past. And I think they go down a lot more the route of, okay, let's get you on to digital marketing and my expertise in people and how to manage people and how to create a great leadership team. I think whilst ours does sound a lot like consulting, and you know, I quite like that idea, it's really around the numbers, because that's where our knowledge lies, and that's where we're offering almost that consultancy expertise, because we're an accountant and we get the figures. So yeah, that's probably not the only, I hope that's kind of answered it some way. It is similar, I think, is my ultimate answer. We are consulting on finances and business decisions and trying to help clients in that way.
Definitely, we're able to take, I guess, that expertise, that technical knowledge, to have that finance slant on the interpretation of that information and of the market. And but yeah, it possibly is a line that's more blurred than it used to be.
I think it is, yeah, definitely.
Definitely, which I personally, I think that makes our role much more interesting, much more enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Definitely able to sort of add more value to that business and be able to support our clients with much more in terms of the service that we can offer and the insight that we can bring to them about their business.
I think the thing is with consulting as well is it's generally seen as, you know, something that huge businesses, your Apples of this world and things, and Microsoft, that they use consultants for. And I don't think small, medium enterprises and, you know, owner managed businesses feel they have access to that. And that's why we've become, you know, like I said, on the Small Business Insights, we've become their trusted advisor, because they do have access to their accountant and they know we've got knowledge in these areas. So yeah, so I do think the lines are blurring, but I do still think there's a bit of a differentiator.
Absolutely. Thank you. So if anyone's got any other questions, we've got a few more minutes to pop them in the chat box. But I just want to say thank you ever so much, Ellie. That has been really, really interesting, really insightful.
Thank you for having me.
For giving up your time to join us all here. And thank you everyone for joining this session.